Hi, and welcome to the Positive Legacy Podcast for Christian Fathers. I'm your host, Dan Hayden. After 23 years in the Army working with and leading some of the finest our nation has to offer, I turned to the coaching profession to help me write the next chapter of my life. What I didn't know was the impact it would have in my personal life as a Christian, as a father, and as a husband. That is why I have made it my mission to help Christian fathers go from miscommunication and tension in their relationships with their families to relationships rooted in genuine understanding and mutual trust, so they can build a lasting legacy of faith and connection with their families and in their communities. Today's episode is one that may hit close to home, because if you've ever lost your cool with your kids or said something you wish you could take back, you're not alone. Today, we're talking about respect without rage. Here's the truth. Teens don't need a dad who never gets angry. They need a dad who knows how to repair. Anger is normal. Rage ruins trust. So today, we'll talk about how to lead with calm authority, how self-command becomes the secret to lasting respect, and how you can start training that inner muscle every single day. Think about this. In the Army, I learned that leadership isn't about barking orders. It's about presence under pressure. I remember being in situations where tensions were pretty high. Everyone was watching how I'd react. My words could either fuel panic or bring calm. That same principle applies at home. When your teen rolls their eyes or slams the door, your leadership is being tested. Not in how loud you can get, but in how grounded you can stay. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32 says, "Better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city." The world celebrates warriors who conquer city, but Scripture celebrates men who conquer themselves. Emotional regulation isn't weakness, it's spiritual warfare. You're battling the automatic, the reactive, the old self. Every time you pause instead of explode, you're building a bridge instead of burning one down. And that's what your kids will remember. Not that you were perfect, but that you were present. So how do we actually train in that kind of self-command? Here's where the positive intelligence framework meets practical faith. PQ is all about noticing when your mind gets hijacked by negative emotions, frustration, blame, shame, and then shifting back to your higher self, what we call the sage mindset. Let's go a layer deeper here, because this idea of self-command isn't just mindset fluff. It's rooted in both brain science and biblical truth. When you get triggered by disrespect or disobedience or just a long day, your brain's survival center lights up. It's the same part that tells you to fight, flee, or freeze. It's fast, it's reactive, and it's loud. That's what positive intelligence calls the saboteur brain. But when you pause, even for 10 seconds, you interrupt that pattern. You shift power to your sage brain. That's the part wired for wisdom, empathy, and creativity. And most importantly for us parents, that's the part wired for patience and curiosity. But look, that's why Romans 8:6 says, "The mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace." PQ training helps you govern your mind instead of letting it govern you. It's like learning to drive on black ice. For those of us that grew up with black ice, you know the deal. You can't stop the slide, but you can still steer. Self-command doesn't mean you don't feel anger. It means anger doesn't get the steering wheel. When you combine that with prayer, when you let the Spirit in during those 10-second pauses, that's when faith and neuroscience start working together. That's what makes a man emotionally unshakable. Not perfect, but present, aware, and anchored. It's like Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That transformation doesn't happen once. It's a daily repetition. In PQ, we do mental exercises, mental push-ups, small amounts of mindfulness throughout the day that strengthen your ability to notice and choose. Here's one I teach in the Legacy Academy. When you feel triggered, Maybe your son talks back or your daughter ignores your request. Pause. Take 3 deep breaths and notice something in your body, the feeling of your feet on the floor or the sound of your own breath. This activates your sage brain, the part of you that responds with patience instead of reacting from fear or pride. Pair that with prayer. I like to call it the pause and pray reset. It's simple. First, you pause. Take those breaths. Second, you pray. Lord, give me your calm right now. Third, proceed. Respond, not react. The more you practice that reset, the stronger your mental and spiritual muscles become. You're no longer a slave to emotion. You are a steward of it. And your kids will start to sense that peace in you. They'll test it, but deep down, they'll come to trust it. Let's make this practical. Just picture this. Your kid rolls their eyes when you ask them to take out the trash. Dad number 1 reacts. His tone sharpens, his voice rises. Hey, look, don't roll your eyes. I don't appreciate being disrespected like that. The trash is still going to get taken out, but that relationship probably takes a hit. Dad number 2, hopefully you, hopefully me, feels that same surge of irritation, but takes one slow breath. He says, hey, I get you don't want to do this right now, but I asked you for a favor. Let's handle it. The difference isn't what was said, it's who was speaking. The saboteur self or the sage self. One led from control, while the other led from connection. That's the essence of emotional leadership at home. Here's the beautiful part. Respect doesn't grow when you never mess up. It grows when you own it. Last week at the dinner table, a time and place that our family cherishes, I made a pretty poor remark. I reacted very poorly to really something that was pretty inconsequential to the quality of our dinner. In fact, it was actually improving the quality of our dinner. I don't know where the remark came from. That doesn't matter. I looked around and 3 of my 4 kids were in tears. I felt justified at first. My judge was telling me that wasn't a big deal. I don't know what the big deal is. This one's on them. But in those quick moments, I knew I had screwed up. I had completely ruined a cherished time and space for my family. Everybody finished eating dinner. We all went our separate ways. I knew I had lost my calm. So I went on a walk, and I immediately went home, and I had to make this right. So I went to each one of my kids, walked into their room or wherever they were sitting. I sat on the edge of the couch, sat on the edge of their bed, and I said, hey, I was completely wrong. I didn't realize my words were going to impact you the way that they did. I want you to understand that is my problem, not yours. That was my fault, not yours. That wasn't easy, but it's humbling and it's holy work. Because when your kids see you repair, they learn how to repair. They learn that authority and humility can coexist. They learn that love doesn't end when tempers flare. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26 says, in your anger, do not sin. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. Notice it doesn't say, never be angry. It says, don't stay there. Repair is the road back to respect. And every time you walk that road, your influence deepens, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it. Brothers, here's the big takeaway today. Self-command is the secret to lasting respect. Your power as a father doesn't come from intimidation. It comes from integration. When your emotions, your faith, and your purpose line up, you lead from peace, not from pressure. And that kind of leadership leaves a legacy. If you want to strengthen that emotional and spiritual muscle, to build that self-command that creates real connection, that's exactly what we train in the Legacy Academy. Through our PQ practice, our community support, and Christ-centered coaching, you'll learn to stay grounded, lead with grace, and repair with courage. So if today's message hit home, I want to invite you to take that next step. Check out the Legacy Academy, where we don't just talk about transformation, we train it. because your legacy isn't built by being perfect. It's built by being present, patient, and prayerful. Hey, I'll talk to you all next week. Until then, lead with love, stay grounded in grace, and keep building your positive legacy.